everybody, this is Car Sundance with the Raw Inspiration TV show. And I come back with another episode today of a topic we have been touched before. And I have Daniel Vitalis today at my show again. And I'm very happy to have him back because after the last interview I was doing with him, I got this wealth of comments to the show about, feeling so bad that I even, have a guy like him on my show because he's into eating meat and a natural tribal food, and he has just a really different approach than most of us in the raw food world. But as I really see that he has very valid points and he has so much knowledge there and made a lot of experiences, I see that this point of view needs just to be seen and it needs to have some room, and this is why I want to bring him on again today. Also to talk a little bit about this battle that is going on between him and the durian rider, and just get his view on these things, and also just let him explain, why he thinks that meat is an important thing for his personal diet. Even though I'm not a meat eater, but I think I wanna give him that room, and I also want to learn about what he has to say in regards to this. So I want to get started with this, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers and sisters, please warmly welcome. This is Daniel Vitalis. Hi Daniel, how are you today?
I'm really good. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back on the show and sort of share from my heart a little bit about where I'm coming from. Because I think, anytime somebody comes out with something that's controversial, there's going to be criticism, and I'm used to that. But it's great to get an opportunity to share how I actually feel so that people can make a judgment call for themselves.
Exactly. That's how also I see it. So what I'd like to hear from you to just get started with this interview. This is something so many people have problems with in the raw food world. Why do you think, out of your experience, meat is something that you chose to eat? What is so valuable about meat? Why do you need to eat that, or have chosen to eat that in your diet?
Yeah, well, I think first I want to say that I find it strange that the burden of proof is put onto me, because where I'm coming from is sort of saying, hey, guess what? The natural indigenous people of the world, all throughout history, everywhere we look, transglobally, ubiquitously, everywhere, really every single tribal people. When I say tribal, I mean pre-industrial. So these are people without iron. These are people without machines, without fossil fuel, people without domesticated animals and domesticated plants. Whenever we look at our ancestors around the world, we see that they consume animal foods in a ratio of around somewhere between 45 and 55% of their calories coming from animal food, and much less of their calories coming from plant food. And when we see it as low as 45%, we see that because people live in a place where there's enough saturated fat in the plant foods that they're eating. But we see that it's around the world.
Sorry, I have a question right there, because I was traveling Australia back then, which fits in with the durian rider because he comes from there. And the Aborigine people, I know that I was reading some books of them. So is it the same with them? Because the information I thought I have is that they eat from time to time, maybe they eat some animals, but not in this huge amount. I'm overwhelmed by this 45% right now. Is it also your information on the Aborigines, which is an old culture?
I don't have documents on the Aborigines right in front of me, so I'm not going to say that. But yes, they are meat eaters. Yeah. They are hunters. They hunt. I believe they hunt with the atlatl, which predates the existence of the bow and arrow. But they are animal food eaters. Now, animal foods are much denser in calories, so it's not 45% if we put it all on the table right now. It's 45% of the calories come from animal foods. Okay. That's the lowest I've ever seen, and that's among the Bushmen. But we see this as transglobally, and we also see that people like the Eskimo, the Inuit, eat almost all of their calories from animal food, and despite what people say about their health, they were some of the healthiest people on the planet. Today they're not, because they're on Western food, living in a really harsh climate. But again, my point being, we see people all around the world, when we look at pre-industrial people, we see they always consume animal food. So my question then to vegans is, again, the burden of proof is not really on me. The burden of proof is on the vegan community to please answer my question, rather than just shooting off nasty comments on the video. Here's a real question. So this is not rhetorical. My actual question to you, because I've been talking about this for over a year now, and I have yet to get actually an intelligent response from any of the vegan community. I get a lot of, you're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly, you're disgusting. I get these mean comments back. No. But no one actually ever answers the question. So my question is this: do you feel that the indigenous people of the planet, all of your ancestors, had it wrong? Were they all wrong? Were they all confused? Did they go wrong somewhere? Did they eat the forbidden fruit? Why do they all consume animal foods? Why do almost everybody on the planet today consume animal foods? That's my first question to the vegan community. Please offer an intelligent response. I'm not looking for a debate. I'm looking for a dialectic.
Okay, so maybe, as I'm a raw foodist, maybe I can just try to give a little answer to this one. It's interesting how we flip this around, which is fine with me, because it makes sense somehow. The indigenous people eat animal products. That's true. Maybe we don't have to discuss so much about why everybody right now is eating animal food, because most of the animal food that has been eaten, maybe we both would agree that that's not the way to go, like this mass animal production. But I think this is, of course, I think that we will agree, both of us will agree on this point, that it's not about this mass animal production. They got to be organic, and they need to be treated in the right way and stuff like this. But as most of the general opinion out there is, that you need this meat for protein. That this is why, also these indigenous people have eaten the meat. So I would say, I just have different sources of that protein. I would just eat, a lot of hemp seeds, lots of greens, and, some of the oils, some of these seed oils, which have a very high protein, and also in a ratio of the omega-369 in a very good digestible way. So that would be my answer. So what would be your response on that? I just eat hemp seeds and stuff like this to cover my nutritional needs for proteins.
All right, excellent, and I appreciate your point, Scott, and I want to say that please keep in the back of your mind that I was for about a decade a vegan.
I know.
I can speak that language, and I understand that perspective that you just shared, and it's got validity to it. So then I would answer it with the second question. Again, this is a dialectic, not a debate, right? So we're just both of us trying to arrive at whatever's true here. But my question would be, do you know anybody who was born a vegan and then lived their entire life as a vegan and lived to a healthy old age and had children, and then their children were raised vegan and they had children? Do you know any cases like that?
That's an interesting question, and I think this is almost a rhetoric question, because I don't know anybody, and I don't know if anybody would know somebody like this. But I have to respond still to get a little point from my side as well. Here is that I know vegans who have been on decades on vegan food, and they're doing good. They're really healthy. So there are, of course, and this is again we can something agree on. There are vegans who are not healthy. A lot of vegans actually, I think, are not really healthy. But there are cases of vegans that are really healthy, and for decades, for half a century, maybe even vegans. So maybe we can agree on that. So why would you? So I think it's possible, or would you even disagree that it is possible to be really thriving healthy on a vegan diet? What is your point there?
Well, could we also agree that there are lots of people on the planet who are very healthy who eat animal foods as well?
That's right, yeah. They do.
Yeah, and we could go to any gym or any fitness club and find some amazing specimens of humanity who are animal flesh consumers. And we can also find vegans who are healthy, who have been vegans for, I don't know that I would call half a century really long term, honestly, and I'll explain why in a moment. But so we both agree we could find people who eat animal foods who are very healthy, and people who eat plant foods primarily who are very healthy. So we agree there, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so the reason I posed the question is because and I've been asking this question about, do you know long-term vegans? Here's what I'll usually say is I'll have up to 1,000 people in a room, and I'll say, everybody put your hand up if you know a vegan, and everyone's hand goes right up, and then I'll say, okay, leave your hand up if you know a 5-year vegan, and lots of hands will go down, and then I'll say, how about if you know a 10-year vegan? And by that time, there's very few hands left up. And as I go to 30, 40, 50, occasionally there'll be 1 or 2 hands left up. Yeah, I know somebody who's been a vegan 50 years. The question I'm asking is, how about, can we find a population of people who've been vegan for their entire lifetime and have had children, and their children can produce viable children? Can we both agree that we don't really have any evidence of that?
Well, there's one point I have to say. I was traveling Thailand for quite a while, and in this Buddhistic culture there, I know that they have not, I should have done a little bit more research as you challenged me here, but I like this conversation very much, Daniel. Thank you for that. But I've been traveling Thailand. I know that this culture there, that they really haven't been eating, and I think in India as well. Well, they have this Ayurveda, which is a totally different approach than our raw food, lifestyle we live here in the Western world. But would you agree? What is your research on there? I know that in the Asian world that there are people, and they do this for generations, for a lot of time, not eating really animal products.
When you say not eating really animal products, do you mean not eating a lot of animal products?
That's the question, yeah. So that's what I mean. I should have done more research there. I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to make here strong statements because I can't tell you. I just was thinking under the assumption that in Asia, in India, and maybe we get some comments down on this video for sure about this one because we both don't know for sure about this point, that they haven't been eating meat there, and some of them really for maybe even for generations. But I'm not 100% sure. So maybe we have to.
If I could address it,
yes?
What I would say is let's make a distinction between vegetarians and vegans.
Yeah,
those
definitely.
are different
That's
approaches.
Right. Yeah.
I really love the vegetarian approach. I do periods of time on vegetarian diets. I use that as a cleansing strategy for myself. I've been using it a lot this summer. And I've been to Thailand as well now. I know you've seen that they eat a lot of meat there as well. And I know that you've seen that they eat insects as well, which is one of the strategies indigenous people all around the world employ. And in India, of course, we're talking about vegetarians who consume a lot of dairy products in the form of ghee and yogurt and butter and even milk. So we're talking about vegetarians. Yes, there's a lot of evidence that people can live very healthy lives as vegetarians. I agree with that. And I think that's a great strategy. I think that the reason they do it is because their culture is dominated by Buddhism and there's a religious tenet there. So they don't do it for their health, right? Where if you go to Thailand and ask someone why they're a vegetarian, they're not going to tell you because it's for their health. They're going to tell you it's because of their religion. But I agree. But my question, let's go back to my question. Do we have any vegans around the world that we can look at and say, hey, wow, they've been reproducing for generations on this vegan diet and the community seems very healthy? Do we have that?
No, that's true. It's a valid point, Daniel, you have there. No, we have not. I think
it raises this question.
Okay.
Is then veganism a sort of new idea? Is it a sort of an experiment? And if so, I would say everybody is welcome to take up that experiment. I took up that experiment for a decade. I had a great time. I learned a lot. But if it is an experiment, and I'll let you answer in a second here, if you feel that maybe it is an experiment, which doesn't invalidate doing the experiment, I mean, that's the whole point of an experiment, but if it is an experiment, then is it maybe premature to tell people that it's the greatest diet for them, that it's their most natural diet, that it's a safe diet, if we actually don't know? Isn't that a little bit... It's sort of like the governments right now who are doing geoengineering, right? And they're sort of doing this experiment with weather control and modification right now. But there's no studies to show it's safe. Or how about the TSA body scanners? They tell us it's safe, but they won't show us any evidence that it's safe. Similarly, to tell people, hey, vegan diet is the diet for you. Trust me, it's the healthiest diet. And when you say, well, can I see some evidence? And what usually gets brought forth is the China study. Now, the China study is on people who ate less meat, but not on vegans. It's just people who ate less meat. Now, that's a different argument. You could show me a book saying, hey, look, if you breathe slower, you'll be healthier. But that would be a big leap to say, if I don't breathe at all, I'll be healthier, right? That's a big leap. So to take the China study and say, hey, these people eat less meat, they're healthier, and there's been a lot of debunking in that book, I want to say that, but still, even if that's true, to make the leap to, well, then a vegan diet would be the healthiest, okay, that's an experiment, let's try it out, let's see some populations of people reproduce for a few generations on it. But if we don't have any evidence of that, please, and I'm asking the vegan community to answer this intelligently, in the form of dialectic, let's sort this out and come to a common agreement. Is it an experiment? And if so, should we be more careful about telling people that they should just accept this idea without any evidence for it?
It's still a good point. Another thought that did arise, because you're asking always about this long term, about generations, hundreds of years. One thing we have to say, which still would not, take away this point of view that it's an experiment, which I would agree, the way you argue just makes sense. But you have also to see that the wealth and the variety of, ancient superfoods we can now access from all around the world that has been not accessible for most of the humans. And like I told you before, like the seeds, like the hemp seeds, lots of a variety of different greens, which also has been not accessible for a lot of people living far up north, for example, throughout the year. That has just been not accessible. So we have really a change also in the way we have the ability to get food, in our system. So that has to also be seen, that there can be evidence, because we have this advanced way of eating. If you know what I mean. Still, I'm with you. It is an experiment. It's true.
And I would say this, that the greens you're talking about, or let's take hemp seed as an example. Now, I really believe in that plant, Cannabis sativa. I believe in it. The name sativa means cultivated into antiquity. So it's been a plant that we've had for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, people didn't eat the seeds before, but not the way we are doing it now. But even still, can we both agree that that's a domesticated plant? In its seed-bearing form, the plants that are grown for seed production are not the wild form of the plant. Can we agree on that?
I think so, yes. I have to.
And that kale and broccoli, collard, spinach, that these are not wild plants either, that these are domesticated variants of the plant, of the wild version of the plant. Can we agree on that?
Well, this is something definitely, I am totally with you, with this domesticated hybrid plants that they're, if everybody tells, well, I'm a raw fooder, and then you're just eating this hybrid plants from the supermarket, that's definitely not the raw food diet that is meant to be. I'm totally with you there, yes?
Okay, so then I would say this. Because the technology, I heard a great a comment yesterday. It was that if we summed up all of human history into 1 year, we started domesticating plants yesterday. Right? So it's very new. Therefore, we could say that technology is allowing us to experiment with the vegan diet, whether that's agricultural technology in the form of domestication or it's shipping technology that allows us to send different foods around the world. Now, that may be true. Again, that still leaves us with, okay, well, let's experiment with it. And all I'm saying, it doesn't matter to me what other people choose to eat, because I know we're all on the same team. Anybody watching this, vegan, meat eater, omnivore, whatever it is, we're on the same team. We're up against the same issues on this planet. We're all facing the same radiation problem, geoengineering problem, the same gene spill issue with genetically modified crops. We're all dealing with toxified water systems and toxified air systems. We're on the same boat. All I'm asking is this. Before promoting vegan diets so vehemently, would it make sense, is it possible to tell people, hey, this is something I'm doing, it's an experiment, I don't have any historical data or scientific data or anything except my own experience and the experience of others to back it up. We don't know if children can be brought forth generation after generation healthfully or not. We're not sure. But we do know that people who do it often like it and choose to do it for a long time. Could we say that to people as a pitch, rather than using guilt, shame, pictures of tortured animals, calling people names, spray painting their coats red, burning down slaughterhouse? I mean, all this stuff is like the reactionary actions of the animal rights and vegan community, of which I was a part for a long time, now seem kind of funny to me, because I would ask this: will the prominent vegans come forth and tell the Native American people that they have made a mistake in their dietary choices? Will they go to the Aboriginals of Australia to let them know they've made a mistake? Will they go to India to let the yogis know they should give up the dairy products? Do you feel all these people that we've drawn our New Age spiritual traditions from were all wrong about this?
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, I also would like to ask this question a vegan, because I would not, and I'm also not a vegan, I have to tell you, but I'm a vegetarian. I'm a full heart vegetarian. So this is also why we lovingly discuss here, both Daniel, and I like this discussion very much. But even me as a full heart vegetarian, you know, I think I couldn't do that, because it's new. You know, I'm a new human, and these indigenous people, they have done it for such a long while, and we have to respect that somehow. And I think, just as coming from a vegan or vegetarian background here, I have such an easy time to blame all the meat eaters and McDonald's and all. You know, that's so easy to do. But think about this indigenous cultures. Would you also blame them for doing what they've done for thousands of years? I think this is a very good point. One more question. They are us, that's true. But I have one more question, and this is a question that is really important to me. Talking about being a full heart vegetarian, how would you see, you know, because this is a problem I honestly have. So that's, again, just a personal question for you. The biggest problem I have is the day I became a vegetarian was when I was killing my first animal and eating it, a goose I was raising from a little tiny animal. So I was doing this because I wanted to take responsibility for my meat, which I believe would really change the world if everybody would take responsibility who eats meat of slaughtering their own animals. How can you do that? If I imagine you with a knife over a rabbit or over a cow. Can you do that? Or how is your take on this one? You do eat that meat? Could you be able to slaughter it? And how would you feel? Because I think there's this ethical border in ourselves to have a really hard time slaughtering animals. At least I have. How is your take on slaughtering animals if you eat them?
Yeah, you've just opened up a huge, that's a big question. I have answers from my own experience for that question.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, first I want to say we're talking about our limbic brain. So not our neocortex, not our reptilian brain, but our emotive brain. The part of our brain that forms emotional impressions about the world is very sensitive to killing anything. That's one of the beautiful things about us. Now for indigenous people, this was very ritualized. It was done very respectfully. It was done with a kind of apology and an appreciation to the organism.
Yeah.
Where we get into challenges is when we industrialize animals with domestication. So then the challenge is not you're going to go out and spend time with an animal, hunting it, tracking it, and finally killing it and bringing it back to your family or tribe or your village. We're talking about 400 chickens having to be killed in one day on a farm, right?
Yeah.
That's really hard to do. That is not really anything to do with animal food or plant food, because the same thing's true of plant food. Right? I personally feel the distaste you just described at killing the goose, I feel when I see a monocrop going on for miles of corn that I know is genetically modified. When I see that, I think, wow, first of all the animals that lived in that area are now displaced. This is a permanent deforestation. Genes are being spread around the globe, contaminating even Mexico with these genetically modified corn varieties. And everything is being killed, or basically all the plants that want to come in and reforest that area are being murdered. To me, that's very disturbing as well. Maybe slightly differently, but also very disturbing. But that doesn't drive me to tell people not to eat plants. When I see machine combines harvesting plants, I don't like that. The same way that I don't like to see factory farming of animals. I don't feel good about that either.
I hear you, but
one last piece.
Okay, that's fine.
That's that the powers who are feeding us data via NBC, CBS, ABC, and all of these networks, and eventually through movies and through television and through magazines, these media conglomerates have a deep vested interest in the domestication process of humans. You know this if you do any domestication or breeding of plants and animals yourself. You'll see what's happened to us. Now, part of the domestication process is to bring out or to maintain juvenile qualities into adulthood. This is called neoteny. And we have, as adults, behaviors and attitudes and limbic brains that are very much like the ones that children have. So do you get children to go slaughter animals? No, that's something adults have always done, right? And for us, because we grew up with movies by Disney of talking animals, and we grew up with cartoons of characters that are animals talking to each other, we've grown up with this not just inability to kill for our food, but I think an inability to face life as adults in a lot of different ways. You know, the issue of killing animals was challenging for indigenous people for sure. It had to have been. Yet they did it because they felt they needed to bring forth healthy children. We are at a point now where it's difficult to get a lot of us up off the couch or away from our computers for a few minutes, no less the idea of killing an animal or doing any real work at all. So I think that issue has less to do with an inherent trait within us, I think it's more to do with traits that have been brought forward into adulthood because none of us were ever initiated into proper adulthood the way that indigenous people did it.
Yeah, I see you, but this is one point I would lovingly disagree with you, because to compare this thing with cartoons and stuff, you know, I'm talking more about, you know, I was raising that goose from a little, and I was just respecting the soul that lived in that. I was looking in that eye of that animal. So it has not so much to do with the comics I was watching, but just the respect for this other life there. This is what I'm talking about, and just seeing this life and going with a knife. And you know, again, I've done that, and you know, and slaughtering that animal has not so much with, at least it doesn't feel right to me, this comparison here at this point. Comparing this with comics, but more just to kill that life there and to kill that living soul somehow, and that's what I'm talking about. So that's my only really hesitation why I can't eat meat anymore, because I can't justify this for myself. So you can justify this, or how do you justify this? You know, that killing these other living creatures.
Well, let me validate you first and say,
okay.
I appreciate what you're saying, because I understand that emotion as another human being.
Yeah.
I understand that emotion and that feeling. And I want to say this, from a biological perspective, what I feel is really it's just what's true. I don't think this is my opinion. We eat cells from other creatures. What we eat, you and I both. So say you're a vegetarian, or let's say a hypothetical vegan in the room. They still eat dead bodies. They just only eat the dead bodies of plants, bacteria, and fungus, whereas I eat the dead bodies of plant, bacteria, fungus, and animals. So I see all of these kingdoms of life as being equivalently biological, whereas some people say, oh, it's wrong to kill this kingdom of life, but I will kill this kingdom of life. As somebody who's a forager and as somebody who spends a lot of time in nature working with wild plants, I watch how people, even vegetarians, behave with plants. For instance, you say, this plant's edible, and they'll run over and rip a leaf off of it, and I'll go like, oof. Like I would approach that with a little more respect and reverence because of my own experience. Conversely, if you watched me butcher one of my rabbits, you might think, wow, that's really horrific. How can he do that? And you might view me the same way I might view you interacting with certain plants. So I personally am capable of that, as are most of the people on the earth. But the thing is that we were raised in a way where we were sheltered from that. Like the Buddha, you read about the Buddha, he was raised in a way sheltered from a lot of the things that go on in life. My opinion, and the reason I brought up neoteny, is I think the killing for our food is very natural to us and very normal to us, but that we were sheltered from it. And so, like children today, when we actually see it for the first time, we're totally shocked and blown away. I mean, I think we have a similar experience when we first experience sex, because nobody really explains what sex is about. So we go into it nervous and afraid and scared and bumbling because we don't really know what's supposed to happen. And the same thing, these are things that adults deal with, and I think the ability to do that is an adult thing, and I understand that not everyone agrees with that. So I want to be real clear here. I validate you for your choices. And I validate the vegans out there for their choices. I just ask them to be hesitant to tell people they're sure they have the right diet for that person, because they have no way of saying that and they have no evidence for that. But if you choose to do that for your own reasons, you have my support. I'm not trying to detract from that, but I also ask this. Can you please open the community up to allow those of us, and there's many of us, who share so many ideals with you, so many lifestyle patterns with you, so many of the same products, the same life ways, the same day-to-day skills, tasks, and strategies with you, but happen to eat some animal food? Or are you going to, and I'm addressing the vegan community, not Yuka, are we going to continue to make this such an exclusive community that those people who eat animal foods can't be part of it because they do something that's sinful in the eyes of the vegan community? And how can that be justified when the vegan community cannot produce evidence to support why they're doing it in the first place? So it brings us into this sort of, to me it seems a lot like why a Mormon's not allowed to hang out with Jehovah's Witnesses or vice versa. It just seems like a religious principle, and that's why I've been so forward with challenging it, because having come out of it, I remember the days when I was so exclusive that if you ate meat, I thought you were gross. I thought you were disgusting. It's come back on me. I mean, that's karma. It's now
maybe
back to me. And it's why I'm willing to take that, because it's my own karma, I think. But but personally, when I've experienced this, when you go live on a piece of land and you decide to cultivate that piece of land, that's not my first choice. That's what society forces us to do. We're not really capable of living as hunter-gatherers anymore. But when you do that, you find it's very difficult to do that without animals present. And I'm comfortable with people living however they want to, but I just ask that those people be comfortable with how some of us are choosing to live. And if they're not, then I think they've been demonstrative of their dogma.
Yeah.
And it can be recognized as such by those of us who aren't part of that inner circle, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, I think we can maybe close this vegetarian and meat-eating discussion here, because I'm 100% with you. And just to back Daniel up here with my, and this comes from a vegetarian, a full-heart vegetarian here, I also believe I don't judge any meat-eater. I think we are not in the position to judge anything really from the heart, because we are all pulling one string. We are living in one world, and we just need to have the respect for other lifestyles. We can't just force our own lifestyle upon others and think, just because I believe it, everybody has to believe it. That's just not how it works, and this is how a lot of wars have started on Earth, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. I really feel we're at a time in history where we can't afford a war between the factions of our community. Yeah. I think if we looked at our community as currently looking like these two factions, you have the people who are doing some animal foods and you have the people who are extreme vegans on the other end, both seeing each other as taking it too far, both battling. It's like the way we have these two hemispheres of our brain, right? So that the left hemisphere of my brain really thinks reality is mathematical, really thinks it's based on language, really thinks it's based on facts and structures and details. Then I have a right brain hemisphere which sees the world artistically and shamanically and understands the interconnectedness of things. What I want to avoid is thinking one is right and the other is wrong, because that sets me up to have a battle in my own mind. We have these two factions. We agree on almost everything. We could be working together to actually change the world around us. Instead, we're like two brain hemispheres battling. You guys are wrong. No, you guys are wrong. No, you guys are fat. Oh, you guys are too skinny. This is back and forth thing going on, and it's dividing us. And there's a Goliath in front of us, and we are sitting here battling each other while it moves forward toward us. I think this is a grave error, and I really, to be honest, I haven't been putting videos out for some time now because I didn't intend to be drawn into such a vicious debate and such a hateful debate. That wasn't my expectation. And, you know, you mentioned Durian Rider in the beginning of it. It's like, I've been amazed at the level that he's taken.